awesome. Wow. Well, I'm so excited to hear you. I should introduce you. This is
Yeah.
Brian Germain, uh, in my opinion, world-renowned parachute expert and beyond, and also fear expert, author of a Transcending, what is the book? Transcending Fear?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. That's one of them.
Yeah, one of the ones that I like and have heard about anyway. Tell me about
I'll,
the others. I didn't know there were more.
I'll send you one. Yeah, for sure. Well, I also wrote a book called Green Light, which is so when you're jumping out of an airplane, there's a moment where you're waiting to jump, you're at jump altitude, and you've done all your preps, you
Hmm.
know, and it'll be on red light, which says that it's not time to jump for any number of reasons. There's a long list of why you shouldn't be jumping.
Hmm.
And then when the green light comes on, it's a permission to jump out of the plane. It doesn't say jump, right? Because there could be something the pilot doesn't know, like another airplane underneath you or something else. And so you get into the door and you give yourself permission to green light yourself on the inside. And so to me, this is the idea that I was trying to get across in this book. How do we switch on the green light? And specifically, how do we green light our higher self?
Wow. Wow. How do we know that it's okay? Huh.
Yeah. How do we choose to open up in this moment? Sometimes we have to. I won't say keep your aura in a suitcase, but sometimes you kind of have to mute because of the context. And then other times you say, this is a safe environment and I'm going to fully express myself. But if we don't have that green light choice where we're always muted, right? The
Mhm.
programming that our society leads us to is very fear-based.
Right.
And it's very kind of don't show up in a crowd.
Hmm.
And in my experience, everybody is. I was just talking about this with Paul. We go to 11. We can. You know what was it? The Spinal Tap. This is Spinal Tap. We were talking about the speakers. These go to 11.
Hmm.
All these other speakers aren't so great because this one goes beyond 10. It goes to 11. I think we can go to 11. Everyone.
Hmm.
And it's a permission-based thing, and our fear is one of the major factors that keeps people from stepping into their own light.
You know what I noticed about fear as a person who suffers from occasionally, but primarily has mastered anxiety.
Hmm.
And I can't even say I suffer from it anymore. I would repeat that and reclaim that. I observe it. I observe myself in panic very regularly. And I've learned to step out of myself, step
Hmm.
outside and just sort of watch myself doing that. And there's a process that I created on YouTube, and it's called the resistance process. And it is profound because it connects you to that part of yourself that has become your defense mechanism. Some people call that the ego. What, in your opinion, is the ego? What's the ego's role? What is the ego to you? And what is its role in fear and defense mechanisms?
Yeah, well, to me, I think it is the desire to create a separate sense of self, so
Mhm.
we can feel like I am alive, separate from source, and I am independent thinker. And
Mhm.
there's a sense of power. It's an illusory power, of course. As soon as you separate yourself from source mentally, well, you're not as powerful as you could be, of course, but we want to feel like the big boy, the big girl. I'm taking care of myself and I'm on my own, and I'm going to pack up all my toys and put them in a backpack, and I'm going to run away from home. And it's a very brave thing to do, soul-wise, that we've all chosen to do. But I think that the ego is this separateness desire, which leads us to a lot of suffering
Mhm.
when we create this illusion of separateness. Mm.
Is there a step, in your opinion, before suffering where we can find out what's going on, observe it, and kind of, if we are in fight or flight response, there's
Mm.
a paralytic state that I've noticed. I don't know about you, but in that
Mhm.
state of paralysis, could that paralysis not be a way to observe as opposed to turning on fight or flight, where we find that middle space that can actually be safe? I noticed you and I have we talk a lot about that space that happens other than fight or flight. Can you tell me a little bit about how to be with our ego in that space?
Yeah, we're so on the same page with that idea that
Yeah.
there is, I think of it as neutral. Right, in your car, you've got first and second, third, and you got reverse gear. But what about neutral? What if we can be in this place where the engine revs at the speed that it's naturally revving? You know, the experiences that we're having is causing a certain reaction within our egoic consciousness and our, you know, some would say kind of our reptilian brain that's reacting, you know, not acting with choice. What if we could create a space in between our higher and lower self, this sort of moderator, mediator that can just observe and not be attached to what the lower voice is saying, because my lower voice is very insecure.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I call it Little Brian, and I think everybody's got one of those, and he wants approval, you know, from whatever I'm, you know, whoever I'm interacting with, of course, and he wants to feel safe from a place of feeling that there is real danger, you know, that I can be killed, I can go broke, I can lose friends. From that lower perspective, it's somewhat valid because I make it valid. And yet from this other perspective, none of that's true. You can't lose anything. You never even left home. And so how do we create that space? To me, meditation is a big part of that, to let go of thought. And meditation comes in many forms. As soon as I say that word, a lot of my clients immediately go, wow, that sounds like work. You're giving me an assignment. I came here to feel uplifted. And I say, that's fine, but consider the possibility that when you go for a walk in nature, especially barefoot if you can, and feel the earth on your feet, if you take a bath with Epsom salts and you have a crystal and you light some candles and you just chill and maybe you listen to some really, really good music, to me, that's a meditation. Mm-hmm. When I paddle my kayak and I have a nice rhythm, you know, all of those things, to me, this is the place where I am observing my world and observing my thoughts, and I'm just simply letting them go to be the observer.
Except that most people that I've observed on Earth appear to be very resistant to formulating that meditation space when they are in the fight or the flight. For me personally, in anxiety, what I've observed is that I go into panic, fear, and crying like a baby and panicking and hyperventilating, shaking everything. Or that's very, very rare. It takes a lot for me to get there. Here's the majority of it: anger, frustration, agitation-based panic. So that is a form of panic that some people just don't really observe really is anxiety, because we have that classic definition of, oh, panic, you're shaking in the corner.
Right. Yeah, but it's also attack.
You better get out of my way because I might throw something or curse, you know.
It's what we do, right? This fight, flight, and freeze. It's not just the freeze instinct where we have the potential in a place of freezing to turn that into sort of a mini meditation, a moment of awareness, of choice, of which mental thought and which physical action path I'm going to take. But that's just the stopped version of fear. There's also the advance and retreat. And when we advance, sometimes, you know, when I'm running late and really worried about being late, I'm not my highest self sometimes.
Yeah.
The panic of being late. And so for me, I have to have a little compassion for myself in these moments.
Yeah.
And let in a little bit of self-love and forgiveness and say, yep, I had a moment where I'm not being my highest self. It's okay because I still have the intention.
Yeah.
That's floating.
And it's never too late. I think so many people are focused on the approval or the disappointment. There's a fine line where approval can become disappointment. If you feel that you haven't been giving yourself approval or you're not getting someone else's approval, then all of a sudden you go into this really strong despair. It's an unusual place. And just yesterday, I observed myself in anxiety and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm letting like 100 people down today if I don't get this podcast working. And what about the people that had to reschedule from their appointments yesterday because my internet wasn't working? And I'm like, disapproval. I'm not, feeling my own approval, and I'm disappointing others. And all of these negative core beliefs come into play, and you don't really have time to observe it. It will fly through your radar. And all of a sudden I was like, my partner could sense it. Like he comes into the living area and I'm like, I just need something right now. And I think that's step one. When you
Yes.
ask for help, when you ask for presence, when you can pick up the phone and call a friend and say, I need some presence right now. And it started out angry. And then once I calmed the anger down, I started backing myself down from the panic. And anger became frustration. Frustration became agitation. Agitation became fear. Fear became despair. Like, oh no, I have really like despair and disappointment. And then you can
Mhm.
go backwards into your actual negative core belief that fuels that panic and fear to begin with. So that's what I was doing. And I almost ended up crying. And in that space, I was like, wait a minute, I'm observing despair in this moment. And I really don't, I'm not, does this really, what did I ask myself? Does this serve me? In this
Yeah.
moment, is it true? Is it
Yep.
real?
Yes.
Felt real. So my ego said, of course it's real. You feel like ass. um,
Yeah. Yeah.
but is it true? Is it real? Does it serve me? Okay. And in that moment when I asked, does it serve me? I'm like, wait a minute. It actually doesn't serve me. And if it doesn't serve me, that might mean, what does that
Mm.
mean to me is another question that I ask in my resistance process. What
Mm.
does it mean to you? This feeling like, well, it might mean if it doesn't serve me that it's not real. It might
Yeah.
mean that everything that I'm fearing right now is something that can, easily be resolved. So
Yep.
I'm like, how do I actually resolve it in my highest and best me in this moment? How would I resolve it? So in my highest and best me would ask for help. So I asked for help in that moment. I'm like, what would I do? How would I feel better? I'm like, I need my partner to make a call. I need someone else to write a letter. I need this, this, and this. And in that moment, that's what it means to me to get something resolved and to not feel frustrated.
Yep.
So in that moment, I asked exactly for what I needed from the people that I needed it from.
Yep.
Um, so that level, it may seem like a small thing to do to learn how to ask for help, but presence is incredibly important. And for those of you who read my process, the compassionate presence response, CPR for the soul, you'll know what I mean. So what's your take on presence? How
Yeah.
important is it?
To call it in, to actually, sort of command it, that in this moment, I am not willing to be this frazzled version of me, right? And
Mhm.
that's a choice, I think, ahead of time, that we all have to sort of make that decision that I'm going to continually work to be the calmest, clearest, most inspired sort of channel is the word that comes to mind of the highest good,
Mhm.
the highest version of me. And so to me, that is a progressive process. I love how you made that point really well, that we have to start where we are. And for me, the word is acceptance. I have to accept that I'm freaking out a little bit, and
Mhm.
that's
And that
okay.
that's
It's
okay.
fine.
Yeah.
It's all right. It's all right. We all have our own version of it. All have our sort of winning formulas, our tendencies to go towards anger, or we go towards shutting down, or right, we go towards escapism in all its forms from the stressor, from the thought process. And we have to then elaborate what specifically we're afraid of. And so as we're doing that, I feel like having a presence of my highest self and beyond. For me, I mean, to me, I want to go reaching up higher, higher, higher inside myself. But what about the open funnel at the top that is receptive to
Mhm.
the thoughts that are not coming from my little head? you know, the support and calling that specifically in the wisdom that is sort of my higher mind connected to the bigger,
Mhm.
whatever you define that as.
Mhm.
To me, that's a presence beyond just the self. To me, there's the lower S self, there's the bigger S self, and then there's the
Yeah, I find that most people seem that they have a hard time connecting to self,
yeah,
and the yogi concept thereof, higher self, if you will, whatever it is we want to call it. I'm not big on definitions these days, but I love
yeah,
what you said about saying it's okay. That is something, that word is a phrase that most of us hear the moment we come out of the wound when our mothers, in the womb, when our mothers pick us up. She rocks us back and forth and she goes, it's okay. It's okay. And I find that I say that to myself a lot internally when I'm going through panic. And I start to go through all the different scenarios of what does that mean to me? What am I really afraid of? And if it's true, if I believe that it is true, what does that mean to me? What am I really afraid of? What would life look like if it were true? And I start to kind of work with my ego a little bit. It was just yesterday when I sat with panic, it was like, it means I'm vulnerable. It means I'm under attack. It means I can't perform my job here because I'm constantly under attack. And it wasn't just about the internet. Like everything that was happening that day was very, very serious personal business. And I'm like, wow, I'm under attack. And I'm like, what does that mean if I'm under attack? And I kind of sat with that for a minute. I'm like, well, I'm a catalyst. I'm always going to be under attack. Does that mean that that gets to be a war zone? Does that mean that I get to get hurt just because bullets are flying at me? No, not if I'm not afraid of them. So it kind of went to this place where I went to this interesting memory of my mom. And I love my mom so much. I was about 15. And my mom had a flat tire, and she was trying to get me to school, she was already late, and we live on this military base at this time, and she had a flat tire, and it was cold, and we were sitting out, trying to figure out what to do, and we were flagging people down because we were on a military base, and none of these soldiers were coming. They were just like going by doing PT. They were going by doing their thing. She was like, why aren't they helping us? And finally, after about 20 minutes, after she got angry and set with it, she started changing the tire herself. And I'm like, I didn't even know you could do that. You can change a tire? She's like, well, yeah, you sometimes you got to be able to be present for yourself. And I'm like, yeah, but you've had all these horrible things happening. We had seriously had some bad things happen that day. We lost a pet to an accident. We were upset. That's why we were late. My little sister has severe panic, and she was having a hard time, and we didn't know how to get her out of the panic disorder. All this stuff was happening. And then we had a flat tire while we're already an hour and a half late for school, and I had a test. So all of this stuff was happening. And you notice how panic gets to be one thing or another. And it's this monster that kind of keeps growing, and you keep the law of attraction goes poof. And then the law of attraction goes, I got your ass now. And
it's a magnifier.
I just sat there with her, and I'm crying, and she's like, it's all right to cry. It's okay. And she's still changing the thing. And I'm like, why are you not crying? How are you not crying? Forget why. I know you're strong, but what, how are you not crying? Tell me. And she goes, well, I looked at it as Earth is an environment that is like this. Came here to learn things. So you understand that if it's not the tire, it's going to be something else. And you have to understand that this is Earth, this is home. You have entered a very unusual environment that you aren't used to, and you're trying to make a home of it. And it doesn't feel like home, but you have to understand that this is home. This is what it is. You shine the light of safety into your fear. You are that safety. You become what you wish to see in this world. And that is how. And I said, so it doesn't stop? She's like, no, it doesn't stop until you stop. So are you going to be safety, or are you going to be fear? Are you going to be, what are you going to be in this moment when these things are happening to you? Because it's the only way to stop it. And even then it's not stopping. Your perspective of it stops.
Yeah. Yes. It's so true. And it's something that occurred to me as you were talking about that moment when the child first comes into the world, because I remember that really well. Well, I've done it 2 times, and it was a very warm sensation. And I remember this feeling of, holding my little baby. And I did say those words, right? I said, it's okay, baby. It's okay. But I remembered another part as you were talking that I said, I'm here. And I think that's one of the things that makes it effective, is this presence, that you're not alone, that you have support. It's your intelligence and your ability to manipulate in the way that the Aikido master receives the energy and doesn't call it adversary. It calls it just motion, and it brings that motion to a state of harmony. Right? That's what the master does.
Yeah.
In a spiral path that is graceful and loving for both parties. Right? That's huge. But what about the intelligence that comes from bigger, and the presence, the love that we are surrounded with every moment? That's the part we forget when we feel alone. When we throw ourselves down this well and we don't even see the rope ladder, the elevator, in fact, that's right there next to us. You say, oh, poor me, right? In the dark night of the soul, anybody that's been there eventually realizes that you threw yourself down this well, and you're the only one that can get yourself out when you decide to accept the help from your higher self and accept the help from those who love you.
Mm-hmm.
When you hear that they are here, when you accept, yes, it's okay because I'm here, because I love you.
What I've noticed, and it's easy for you and I to say, you have beautiful wife and kids, you have, I have a partner and great kids. If I'm upset, even my 5-year-old is like really astute enough to be like, I'm here for you right now, mom. Like, my kids are awesome. And I'm sitting there trying to act strong because I'm a mom, but I just think it's so cute that she's, able to hold my pain, but I don't want to because she's 5. But regardless, I'll go to my teenager, I'll go to my partner and say, I need something right now. I don't even know what it is, but I just need you to sit with me until I figure out what it is. But it's easy for us to say, having that. There's so many people that come to me for help that say and they believe genuinely that they are alone.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes they've created it for themselves and pushed everyone away.
Yeah.
So then there's that. They're living alone. There's no one there. It's not, one thing or the other. Like it's, they're legitimately in their physical world. They feel alone. People could be reaching out left and right, but they won't even notice it because they believe that they are alone.
Yeah. And something about that topic is that we're in a world of all different kinds of people. And some of them, especially I noticed the artist types, the blue energy people that kind of thrive a little bit on the suffering, the pain, the aloneness, and the catharsis. And I find myself occasionally starting a judgment about that, saying, well, but everybody should be happy. Nobody should be with, with this feeling of separateness and misery. Well, maybe I need to just sort of let go with that and let people embrace and accept exactly where they are without any judgment from inside them or outside them, and let that be. Let that be. And if people choose on their own that ultimately the goal is to dip in and out of the ups and the downs and just let things naturally go and just call that life, it to me, it heals the duality of this value judgment of whether it's okay or not to be unhappy or scared in this moment. Instead of pushing it away, what we resist persists. You just say, I'm just enjoying it. I'm just enjoying this reality of this is real right now, right? That is my reality. This is what's happening. This is what's going on. And I'm enjoying my consciousness's ability to understand the truth of what it is. I'm going to go deeper into the truth of it.
I knew someone like that. I recently met her. She is a inner child soul retrieval expert and inner child facilitator, one of the best in the world. And she told me, she said, people's pain, it is so beautiful. And I just kind of looked at her and I just had to kind of feel it for a moment, what she was saying, and refrain from judging because I really wanted to understand. She said, because it's real, it's raw, it's vulnerable, it's authentic.
Yep.
And that is humanity. It's great when they're joyful and blissful as well, but the depressed artist is really, really beautiful to me. She said, I really relish in that and I can sit with it and hold space for it. And she has one of those higher self aspects that come through the soul of the Magdalene. And Mary Magdalene had a lot of moments of depression when I channeled her, a lot of depressed moments. And but she did not feel alone in those moments or afraid of those moments. And it was kind of an unusual thing to witness, trying to get to know Mary Magdalene as a child, like that essence of her, and talk to her and channel her. And she told me, she said, grace is the ultimate level of acceptance. So when you're saying to yourself, it's okay, even when you don't believe it, grace is there that transcends your ego. It means everything is perfect, even when your ego says it's not, even when your fear says it's not, even when you are trembling, that there's a beauty in that vulnerability where grace says, you can accept this because all things are divinely perfect in this now. And that is what she taught me. But what I have to ask you further about what you said is, do you think that suffering in this way can unfortunately be an addiction as well? That
Oh
they're
yeah.
really not okay, but they're addicted to the suffering to the extent that this is why suicidal tendencies begin to occur, that there's an addiction involved in this?
Yep. I think that's for some. I think it's unfair or unrealistic to assert any absolute truths on human consciousness with its free will, you
Yeah.
know, infinite nature. But yeah, I've seen a lot of that where people are hooked on it because it becomes kind of a personality comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Again, if I'm just a circle in a box, in a little reality where I go to my TV, I go to my shower, I go to my fridge, I go to my toilet, and this is my small little life. And maybe I add into that a job that I'm comfortable with that doesn't push my boundaries, right? That's what I call a small circle in a small box. And if I was to say, well, what if life would be more? To me, that's what Source is calling us towards, is more. What if we could make a larger box, be a larger circle of reality? And to me, that's what I want to introduce whenever possible to somebody that I see has justified with their thought process, justified a lifestyle in a self-definition, which is a smaller box than their true nature is. And I find that a lot of depression and unhappiness is a spiritual hunger for more, because you're more than what you're being. And you're like, why do I feel stifled? Well, what if I put on clothes on you that were too tight? What would that feel like? I feel miserable. Well, maybe you're bigger than you thought, you know? So I think spiritually, that's a big, it's just an invitation, to that realization that we are all more than we're being. I don't know anybody that's in physical form anyway that couldn't be more than they are, more loving, more inspired, more passionate, more fearless to bring out all of those things.
Hmm. And would you say that that suffering is an addiction because it's catalyzing that person and that it'll be there until acceptance is formed?
I think that's a perfect way to describe that. Yep. It takes as long as it takes. Here's the thing, is that might be going on for many, many lifetimes. And it's possible that in between lifetimes, people are kind of going, wow, all right, I did that again. I did the small me thing again out of safety and fear and whatever, and focused on 3D, right?
Mm-hmm.
Living
Mm-hmm.
and dying and all that stuff. And they come back in with this fresh intention, and then they allow the programming from the world, right, from our culture, to mute the true self, the much larger self.
Mm-hmm.
And it starts the loop again. And I think the more people can sort of step out of normal culture, the better. Be a little weird, be happy weird, be inspired weird, even if that doesn't mean happy. Be fascinated. How about that? Maybe that's a word that allows us to sort of breach the duality thing of happy or depressed. Just be fascinated. When I watch my kids out in nature and they see a bug or a cool little flower that's growing and blossoming, and they stare at it, and I get down on my hands and knees with them. That's, for me to keep alive, not to reawaken, but to keep alive my inner child is one of my goals. And so for me, fascination is a form of fearlessness, because I'm being brave enough to ignore the other distractions, ignore the time that in my mind, of course, it's real and it's ticking, got to get on, got to keep moving. And the grown-up is just so busy. What if we were to let go of time and really allow ourselves to be fascinated and let that journey of fascination go wherever it goes? Because it always goes home. It goes to truth.
That's a close frequency. It's the frequency of fascination is kind of in between wonder and celebration.
Mm. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
almost a complete happiness where you can celebrate everything if you're fascinated. Wonder is one of the primary tools that I teach about when we talk about law of resonance. versus law of attraction, where you are the target and everything just comes back at you that
Mm-hmm.
you need to fix. Or if you happen to be perfect, anybody raising their hands on that one? Not me. If you happen to be perfect, everything you attract comes back and all of that, and it's all great. But you're in a dualistic environment, so chances are you're not here for all of that non-dualistic stuff just yet. We still have some things that we have to go through. So I love the word wonder, and it is something that I teach about. And I remember when I was a little child, I was in fourth grade, and I was always fascinated by what the teacher would write on my report card. Not because I was scared about what grades I would get. I knew what grades I was going to get. But I was curious what people thought, what their perspective was, of my learning of me as a personality. So one day I looked at my report card and it said, Pamela is a very conscientious child. And I remember tapping on the teacher's back and I said, Miss Burnside, what does this mean? Like, what does this word mean? And she goes, oh, that word, I know you'll go look it up. And she just turned around and looked at her, and I'm like, wait, but, and she just handed me a dictionary and walked off. So that is a step to wonder. Wonder does not mean that you wonder if something is going to be good. If you're not in that place yet with your anxiety and your fear and your dark night of the soul, if you even wonder out of curiosity, just to say, well, I wonder if I'm learning something from it. I wonder if there's a reason that is beyond, oh, is my transmission distorted? Hang on.
Sounds fine to me.
Okay. I reset it just in case. Mm-hmm. Can you hear me now? Okay. I wonder if there is something beyond what I'm experiencing. And I wonder if what I'm experiencing right now, even if I can't understand it or glean definition from it, there is a reason that is beneficial.
Yeah.
Just that moment. It just stops you, and it's a pause that can become a reset if you remain paused long enough, and it can sort of build you into acceptance, prepare you for acceptance. Acceptance is not, okay, my life is crappy and I accept that it's crappy, so I'm just going to succumb to this and surrender into suffering. Acceptance is the ultimate form of trust, to say whatever this is, I accept that in this now, that it is okay. And that is all that it means. Yeah. What about you? What do you think about acceptance and all this?
Yeah. For me, it's an absolutely yes. And the realization that we are lively in the now, the chooser, the changer, the improver, the observer of what is, and then saying again, yes, and this is what it is, and this is what I prefer. Based on all of my learning, all of my preferences, all of my original intentions, I can skew things. And to me, that liveliness of my consciousness is what makes it okay, and what warms my consciousness enough to be brave enough to act upon that with thought and action is the knowledge that I am not alone, that I am here, right? That I am surrounded by love, I'm surrounded by support from my love of self, but to me, that's always nurtured and drawn by the love of others, of me, right? Of the non-physicals as well. And if we sort of expand our mind and even take a moment right now and just sort of breathe that in, to realize that we're safe because we're loved. We're safe because we're guided. And we're safe because our brave genius to improve, right, within us will resolve whatever comes. We're granted opportunities. We're granted complex problems, puzzles to solve, because it gives us something to grow off of, right?
Right. Acceptance.
It's okay.
Really unusual term that I feel when I tell people about acceptance, that some people even get angry with me, that they'll say, what do you mean? Are you telling me to accept that I was beaten, or that I was raped, or that my son was murdered? Or I'm like, acceptance doesn't mean that you are judging if it is good or bad. It means the opposite. Acceptance is a release of judgment.
Mm-hmm.
And the only judgment that could possibly be there is safety.
Yep.
So about judgments, how do you believe personally that judgments come into the fold here, with how we're judging ourselves, other people, the situation, judgments either negative or positive? How do you believe that folds in?
Yeah, well, I think consciousness does that. We are judging our own personal reality about preferences of what we like and we don't like. But for me, the word judgment brings up a part that needs to be addressed. The part that the smaller, the ego self sometimes limits us with judgments that are not necessarily based on our higher self's opinion,
Mm-hmm.
but of our culture that is bringing in sort of thoughts that think us, where we react based on what a typical person in a typical screenplay, playing out this situation, what would they do? What would they think? What would they, based on stereotypes
Oh
of
gosh, yes.
reality.
Yeah.
Instead of tasting reality as it is, instead of meeting a person where they are, excluding their body, excluding their role that they're playing, excluding the suit that they're wearing in every way. What if we were to really be with that situation as it is, transcending these assumptions? It's those judgments that I feel like we really need to cut them away, right? As a skydiver, we get two parachutes. If the first one doesn't work, you pull the cutaway handle, that parachute falls off. It's gone. And then you open up the second parachute. This refreshing of our perspective is very important. And to recognize that certain judgments really are not helping us. They are not serving us in raising our vibration and raising the fun factor of our experience, the inspiration factor, the connection to other human beings. We end up separating ourselves from the ultimate possibilities, the best case scenarios, by being the judger. So I don't want to be that.
Right.
So
Right.
hopefully I'm not alone in that.
No, no, you brought up an interesting point. Number one about stereotypes. So in societal and cultural norms, that is exactly the problem, at least from my perspective, is that we are taught how to be, who we are, how to think, how to feel, what is the judgment of right and wrong, what expectations are, what assumptions based upon duality should and shouldn't be made, operative words based upon duality.
Mm-hmm.
So with that much societal programming, from religion to politics to even gender roles,
Yeah.
and our sexuality even is judged,
Sure.
and told to be put in the box of something. Right, the
Shame.
shame. Let's talk a little bit about that, because I notice that shame is so strongly attached to that,
Mhm.
based upon this societal conditioning.
Yep. Here's my view of shame. You have this beautiful bell that rings so beautifully. Our true nature. Shame.
Yeah.
It's useless, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a pill that we swallow. In the morning, the nurse comes in here and says, take this. And you say, why? Because I said so. Because it's normal.
Yeah.
Don't be abnormal. And I think the best advice I could give anybody is be you. Don't be normal, be you.
Mm-hmm.
Shamelessly, And to me, that brings in power. That brings in a sense of inner compass to feel our way through our reality, what's presented to us. It requires a lot of bravery, doesn't it? To really trust the inner self.
Mm-hmm. It really does. And recently I channeled Serapis Bay. It was just yesterday in a class, or may have been Monday. But anyway, and he came through and he said there is a problem within the societal conditioning. You have been taught and conditioned to consider life, with a myth. And this grand myth is the myth of power, and it is fueled by the acts of shame. So I asked him to describe what the myth of power is. And he told me that people are operating in power over or power under, because of societal paradigms that we have these authorities and rules. Not that it's bad necessarily, but that there's some level of something that can perpetuate shame if we are taught that we should allow everyone other than our inner nature to judge us and cause us to feel in power under something, or if we're in a person that, because we are also afraid, that we choose to extort our power, project it forward, and be in power over collectives of others. So we are taught in power that we are in power under, or we need to be in power over in order to prevent being in power under someone else. And all that does is produce shame. And he said that shame is so deeply perpetuated because of the myths of power, that shame is a natural thing that has occurred in our DNA that is so deeply programmed. Yeah. So he started to talk about ways to deprogram shame. And acceptance was one of those things, was to deprogram shame. Acceptance was the first thing that he said. That's the first step to grace, is accepting who you are. So what do you feel about how to deprogram shame?
Yeah. Well, I mean, for me, there's a three-step process of evaluating reality in terms of its validity, its usefulness, right? And whether we choose to move forward with an energy or not. A belief structure, to me, it's just another energy. It's a program in our minds. And to me, acceptance it's the opposite of rejecting a belief, right? So I'm swallowing the fact that this is really how I feel, but it's how I feel. But I now have to examine what it really is, right? There's two layers. And so that's the second step of this process in examining my shame, is saying, yep, I do feel shameful. Why? Is there something in terms of what really happened where I played a role that I'm not proud of, that my higher self says, you can be bigger than this. You can be more loving than this. Well, that process of examination, to me, that's identification, right? It's clarification. And so it's going deeper, meta thought. In psychology, we call it that, right? Meta level thought about the reality of the source of my shame. And sometimes, to me, there's kind of good shame and bad shame. Good shame can gently, lovingly nurture you in the direction of your highest self, your ideals, and who you are dreaming to become, who your inner child. This is how beautiful I am. This is how loving I can be. This is my path of service. And yet I'm not necessarily playing that role all the time.
I call that guilt.
Yeah, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And guilt, shame, I believe, is absolutely unnecessary. But guilt is something that kind of is a beginning step before shame happens. Guilt is just sort of, wait a minute, something's not quite right here. Let's observe it. Let's identify what are we feeling and why. And then, what now? Guilt is just what steps do we take now so that it doesn't become shame.
Right.
Yeah, it can definitely serve if it is thought about in that way. I agree with you. But I like your process of identifying the shame, especially once it's already deeply set in and it's been there for so long. I feel that it's so important that we identify that that's what it is. Guilt can actually be motivating, but shame is flattening. Yeah. When you feel guilt, it's a motivation to do something different, and that is all. That is all. Mm-hmm. But when you feel shame, it feels like...
Yep. Funk. Yeah. Yeah, my beauty is not in the house at the moment. Of course, it's there. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there you go. You gotta have a wet blanket, right? You need a wet blanket.
Yeah. Imagine my sweater is just being a giant wet blanket. That is what it feels. It just feels gross. Yeah. It's so close to the frequency of disgust. Have you noticed that, guys?
Yes.
It just doesn't feel good. And when you start to feel something that feels a little, for those of you who cannot identify shame, when you start to just feel disgusted, that's how you know that you're just like, ooh, that's just gross. That's what that is.
Yeah.
Someone said in chat right now, isn't the root of shame in convincing us that we are not as worthy as we are? If you choose to believe that you are not as worthy, and if it sets in, Yeah, it could be. What do you think about that, Brian?
Yeah. Yep. I think that, well, all of our feelings are based on our belief structure.
Hmm.
And it's this resonance of this information called what I believe in.
Hmm.
And those beliefs, some of which are from the outside in, where we're taught, and others are through our experiences. And I
Hmm.
feel like those are the ones that are sort of tried and true, and we can really lean on that a little bit.
Hmm.
Because we have to have something that we call our values, right? I think that that's how we start to sort our way through the world, and sort of move away the smoke enough that we can keep moving forward, is to know what we really what we value, what we want to create more of.
Identifying our values. Yeah,
It's big. It's
absolutely.
absolutely. Now, the other thing that I wanted to bring in is that I'm noticing that one of the processes towards releasing shame and releasing fear and opening, right, opening the heart chakra. There's there's a ritual that human beings sometimes don't utilize, particularly those of the XY chromosome. I can speak to them, and those who carry that vibe, but I think everybody does it. There's a ritual called crying that is, it brings in, for me, for some of the time, I feel this shame about this release, right? This release of resistance that is so natural, and yet I'm afraid to show it sometimes in certain, certain subjects, certain social contexts in particular, right? But at least when I feel safe and at home, I find one of the best ways to clear off my lens, to really get in touch with who I am, how I really feel, and release any resistance to accepting how I feel, is just let myself cry. Why not? Does it say that you're weak? No. It says that you actually are in touch fearlessly, right? You're in touch with how you really feel,
Mhm.
and you're letting go of your resistance. Yeah.
I believe that it brings about an innocence when you're crying, a certain vulnerability, and that's a hard thing. Um,
Mm.
Crying, oh my goodness, it's ridiculous with me. I can cry in front of thousands of people, but if you get me in front of my own partner, I'm like, I'm gonna go talk to my friends for a bit. I love you. Bye. And then I like shut the door and I'm like, ah, crying. Can't do it. Can't do it. Like for the first time just yesterday, I cried like really just a little tear. And then I was like, try it back up.
Right. And we have this assumption that this vulnerability is not power, and it's wrong. It's one of the things we have to sort of accept, and sort of identify and go deeper into that untruth that that have been repeating in our minds.
Hmm.
That vulnerability is the opposite of power, and it's not. Because if we can get in touch with our power, we can bring in this pure stream of Kundalini energy, right? We wake up if we let it flow. And it is scary to let go of the reins of the horse and go, go run, but we have to a little bit, don't we? If we really want a free flow of energy, if we really want to be at a higher vibration.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
can cry if I'm trying to climb a mountain and I'm worried I'm gonna fall. Of course, there's like obvious things. I can cry if I'm on an extreme hiking, expedition and getting cold and worried about something with altitude. I can cry if
Yeah.
there's, oh my gosh, a giant spider that might be there. I'm not gonna think about Peru. Um, I can cry. There's monkeys. I can't stand monkeys, and I'm about to go to Peru, and there's monkeys. I cried last night over monkeys, for goodness sake. I was sitting there and I'm like, what am I afraid of? I'm like, am I seriously thinking about monkeys in a trip that's like almost a month away? And I'm terrified of monkeys and I'm crying and I'm not even there yet. So I'm like, I know that I'm at that bottom of the barrel of something when I'm crying about something that hasn't yet occurred. And this is something that I wanted to bring up with you is attachment and
Yeah.
expectations and how that can bring about fear of things that aren't even here yet, because the future is not in existence, and we're crying about things, and for all I know those monkeys are going to come up and cuddle me, you know. And but in my mind I'm sitting there trying to go through my own resistance process, and I'm like, I'm going to be walking through the forest, and there's going to be this one time when the medicine man isn't watching me, and that monkey's going to attack me on the back of the neck because I forgot that I had a banana in my backpack. And I'm going through all these little scenarios, and I'm like, or maybe I put on essential oils, you know, and he likes the way I smell. It's not even like it's something that's completely out of my control. And there's this ravenous monkey that jumps out from a tree in the middle of nowhere when no one's looking, and it's completely nonsensical because I'm sure most shamans and Kabatari are like, they know that we're Americans and we're a little bit scared. So I know they're probably not going to let me go off by myself, you know, but all these things are coming, these expectations of something bad that kind of loom. It's like an impending fear, impending doom is what I often call it when I teach about it. So I just kind of sat with that for a moment, and I'm like, is that really logical? Well, knowing me, it might be, because I tend to go off by myself in dangerous places just to catalyze myself, just to face fear. And then when something comes, I'm like, this happened. Oh my God. You know, and then it's not as bad as I thought. I'm like, it's a monkey. Calm down, breathe. Do not think that it's going to bite you. Do not think that it's going to bite you. And then you say not, and the universe, you know, doesn't respond to not. So here I go again with fear. The fear just kind of just will blend itself into this fantastical story. And then wonder is becoming a not so fun fantasy for me.
Right. Yeah, I wonder what if it doesn't go well, right? There's always the thoughts in both directions. What if it goes badly? What if it goes well? And the question is, how much do we spiral our way down into what if it doesn't go well, right? Catastrophizing possibility.
Catastrophizing, that's
right? Yeah, if that's the prefrontal cortex doing its job, it's just imagining. We just have to give it the opportunity to imagine something else that involves an element of power.
yeah. So that's what I started playing with a little bit as well. Someone said to me, someone who was holding space said to me, well, you know, have you ever seen a little monkey that you thought was cute? And I'm like, yeah, those little baby ones that are so tiny that if they did bite me, I could just shank them off and throw away. But she's like, no, just any level of a monkey being cute. And I'm like, well, no, but stuffed animals, like Curious George, I had one when I was little. And she's like, so when you see the monkey, put on the face of Curious George over the monkey and just go to that moment of your childhood when monkeys were actually okay.
Sure.
So I had a hard time, so I'm still working on it. But with deeper fears like spiders and monkeys and things like that, what is your advice on proactively getting rid of expectations that become catastrophe?
Yeah. Well, starting with the inside of us, rather than we going straight into let's get a stuffed monkey and let's get whatever, we will we need to take those steps, in the visualization steps and the action steps that allow you to take one little teeny baby step at a time towards whatever it is, to become acclimatized, right? To become comfortable, and eventually to the point where you really appreciate and see through the eyes of that thing that you're afraid of deliberately, right? That's where we're getting towards, is to marry the two back together into one. The fear, you know, the feared and the fearer, maybe, right? To bring them into one again, into a state of love. So the beginning for me is a recognition that I am in a reality that receives my vibe, right? You accept that. And I'm in a reality, in fact, that can vibrate on the frequency that I choose. And therefore, I'm able to shift things, right? I'm able to shift things in a way that makes me more powerful than I've even witnessed of myself in the past, right? I mean, you accept that you're more powerful to create safety than you even realize, especially when it comes to organic structures, right? To being. When you think, what if I was actually channeling Gaia at the time, walking barefoot through the forest? She would radiate nothing but safety, right? Can you picture it? What if I was actually being Mother Earth in body, walking through the forest? I'm creating this bubble of safety that radiates infinitely. And so to recognize that I've got that power to create safety, which I know you've done, I think that's a step one with anybody, is to recognize that if you let yourself slip down in consciousness to this lower place of I'm not safe, I'm not powerful, I'm just this little vulnerable thing in this big scary universe, I'm going to create that, and I'm capable as a powerful creator to make much more of that. What if I was to rise up? What if I was to say, I am now going to stand in this place of safety, which is a place of power, which is a place of love, which is a place of connection, right? To reach out and say, no, you are not disgusting. You are not scary. I know what they've told me about monkeys, that they, attack you with their big claws and teeth and they throw poop at you and all that. Yeah, whatever. I also know that when I picture the baby chimpanzee with his little diaper on, he lives in somebody's house. Remember how they wrap their arms around, you ever seen it? And they give them a big kiss with their big lips, and they're so affectionate because they're not so different from us. They're consciousness. They're source looking through eyes as well.
Mm. This reminds me of the very end of the movie Moana. I know you probably saw it because you have kids.
Last night. And
at the very end, when they're walking together, Moana, and then this perception of evil that had projected into form. Perfect. I don't remember her name before she, came to body. What was it?
Tefiti.
Tefiti. Yes, Tefiti. And she's holding the heart, which is the love, and she's singing, and she goes, "This is not who you are." And then she just looked at her eye to eye, and she wasn't afraid, and she saw nothing but love. And she said, "That's not who you are." And then she placed the heart into Nefertiti, and then that's when she began to blossom and become love. Yeah.
Bingo.
To get to the
bingo in bold, italic, flashing emoji. Yeah. Totally. That's what it is. And when somebody's in a state of fear, it's because they believe that one is the other, right? They believe they put a face on their fear. And I think that we should take a closer look at not just the object of the fear, right? That's what William James spoke a lot of, is the object of the fears is a fearful object because I act fearful. It's just an object, and I'm changing the outcome. So he was saying, if you walk down a dark city street, right, so if you know William James, just for clarity, the father of modern psychology, most people say. And he said, if you're walking down that dark city street and you're scared and you walk faster, it changes your heart rate, right? Your body is pulling more resources, and it's changing as a result of the state of the body. It's changing the brain. It's changing. You can see the electrical activity in positron emissions tomography and all these sciencey things. You can see the brain in terms of its distribution of electrical wealth. Energy goes away from the prefrontal cortex. It goes away from the front part of the brain, the creator, the one that feels empowered, the one where compassion and love comes from, interestingly. And it retreats us back to these old brain structures of attack, retreat, and hide. And therefore we exude a certain vibration from a certain perspective, but you can also say we're actually creating an expectation based on a limited view, right? Not rose-colored glasses, red-colored glasses. When people say they see red, you're seeing red. Well, what if you were to tone that red down by slowing the breathing, slowing the walking, relaxing all parts of the feet, right? When you're doing a downward dog and you're all up, and you're barely even touching the ground, and they say, sink in, right? All parts of the hands, all parts of the feet, grounding the energy, right? This is beginning the process of awakening the power. We go down and then we go back up. That work for you?
It does. Do you think that we have some time to take some questions from people who are
yes.
watching?
I almost forgot. Yes.
Yep. Now's the time for where you want to start putting your questions into the Q&A section. You'll see a little folder down at the bottom, right up underneath our face here. And you can type them in chat if you want. It is a small group. We're watching chat. It's not moving too fast. So I think either way would be fun. If you guys have questions about this topic, we'd love to talk further about it. And in the meantime, you know, Samantha is saying something about the results of it. Fear is easy when you really think about that concept, you know, that we just discussed of love permeating through it. But she said the results, however, that is so hard. And that's resonating, but the result, do you mean by that the action, actually doing that, becoming love is hard for you in the face of that fear? Because my take on that, if that is what you mean, would be, what if you go into the truth of it, the truth of the matrix system from what you understand in universal law, which teaches us that divine truth is not the body, is not the mind. Those are your tools, the vehicle through which love or fear or anything that you choose to create emotionally can operate. But what if you choose something in the middle? I am a way of the middle. I am strongly for that in all of my teachings, and I have channeled many yogis. I love Sri Ramana Maharshi, who teaches, I am not my mind, I am not my body. However, there are many teachers of duality who will say, well, we are here to create with our minds and our bodies, so that would be dishonoring to not believe that. I find that the middle is a great place to be, because then you can create from whatever perspective. There are moments when you will say, it does not serve me in this moment to create something from the body. It serves me to create from spirit. In this moment, I'm parachuting and I need this body, and it is going to be my tool. And I am creating from this body and experiencing, you know, the possibility of just going into Gaia in this beautiful way. So it's the body working with the mind as your tool, as your vehicle for love and transformation, which is what's so powerful about watching you guys as you jump from planes, and more so when you jump from stationary things. That really, really freaks me out when I watch you guys in your wingsuits as you have your little cameras on. And when the last time you did that and you sent it to me, and I was watching you and your wife was shortly behind you in this particular video, it was so amazing, because I guess you've done it so many times, that particular form of, you know, jumping, that you guys didn't have any fear. I could just see as you were navigating your wingsuits and things around rocks and mountains, and I started to visualize myself if I were gliding or in a suit, how I would be coming so close to like that, you know. And then I saw your wife and her camera view going down, and she took just slightly different path than yours. Yeah. But you get very, very close to things, and then you'll kind of go around at the last minute. And I'm like, oh my gosh, if I were doing that, I'd be like, okay, there's the rock. Oh, we're not gonna hit the rock. We're not gonna hit the rock. Let's start turning now. Let's like overturn, because there's the rock.
Right.
How do you do that without fear?
You're onto something there, right? Because there is don't hit the rock. That's one thought process. And then it is fly noticing the rock. Yeah. It is separate, right? In terms of the mental experience. And if you think don't hit the rock or don't hit the tree, or, you know, don't accidentally land on the top of the mountain where I'm going to need a helicopter evac, right? These things are possible. I don't think about the don't. I think about the do. Where do I want to go? I say fly for the spaces between things. Look at the space. Look at all this room that you have to fly in. And suddenly you realize that there's a lot more freedom out there than there is limitation. And that's how I address the fear. I look for the openness.
So there's more choices than just, I'm going to fly to the rock, or I'm going to completely go off course. You know, there's so many more choices. Okay. That was one of the first things when I got over, you know, my fear of channeling Archangel Lucifer.
Yeah.
one of the first things that this brilliant being said to me was, I live in the gaps between your stories.
Yes.
And I wrote that down when I was a little kid. I'm like, who said that? And he's like, if I told you, you wouldn't like it. You formulate the story. And then
Yeah.
I found out later exactly who it was. I thought it was Archangel Azrael at the same time because they have some similar energies. And later I found out that it was, I'm talking to this being that everyone's afraid of this whole
Yeah.
time. Um,
That must be hard for him.
yeah. Yeah, it is a little bit because when you publicly channel someone that's either so good, like Jesus, or allegedly so bad, like Lucifer, it's either a career upshot or a complete flop. And that's what I had told myself. And I'm like, which am I going to choose? I didn't choose to channel these beings thinking that it would be one way or the other insofar as how it would affect me or others. I thought, well, they're going to love it or they're going to hate it. And I'm just going to choose love. But you're teaching something different here, about the in-between space, those gaps in between those two stories that really fascinates me. Samantha's talking a little bit further about it in chat, and she says she's been very ill as of late and she's not sure where it's going, and she's trying to choose not to go to fear. You know, she's had some horrible medical test results come back recently. What is your advice to her on trying to find that middle way?
My advice always when somebody is dealing with a physical thing that they're in the process of healing is to recognize that the process of healing is revealing the well-being within, right? To place your visualization on the perfect body, on the vibrant cells, you know, everything as it is intended to be, which is just right.
Yeah.
It's lively, bright green energy, healing energy. That's what we basically are. And we're healing ourselves every day, all the time, right? We hear that we get cancer and we fight off cancer every single day of our lives. And it's what we do well. Our bodies are really amazing. And so if we surrender to that process, we don't get in the way of that process in terms of our fear and resistance. And we just trust, right? Can you feel it? The arms that you're in, right? It's okay. I'm here. I'm here with you. And that is bringing in the safety, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Bringing the well-being. That's how I would respond to that.
So what I'm taking from what you're saying, it reminds me a little bit of a fear that I had because I was born with a genetic disorder that I did not know that I had until I moved to Utah. And this specific genetic disorder causes my red blood cells to kill each other whenever my body gets below 30 degrees. And I live in northern Utah. And one day I just collapsed and I had no idea. I had some severe anemia and I had no idea what was happening. And there was a doctor at the time I was working with. She's a OBGYN, and she goes, well, let me do some tests on you that were similar to what we did when you were pregnant. I'm like, oh, well, this is a weird thought. She was like, no, it's just genetic tests and it's just cheaper than sending you to a geneticist to find out what's wrong. So she did, and she said, oh my goodness, you have this rare disorder. You got to move. You're going to die. Oh my God. And I guess it's doctors, right? And
God bless them.
Right. When you go to the allopathic doctors and they're like, you have this amount of months to live. So she didn't say that, thank goodness. But she said, if you keep exposing yourself, your body is not gonna, you can't do this. You can't do this. And I'm like, I do not accept. Like, it did not compute. Like in my body, it just like does not compute. You know, so my place where I go with that, I started to think about my blood cells and I'm like, wait a minute. Don't blood cells die all the time? So if I lose a bunch of them suddenly, and I'm also taking a bunch of awesome iron supplements, and I'm also really understanding that I can regenerate myself at any given point in time from my center of power in my chi, if I start to be in the cold unexpectedly, can't I just muster up a large amount of chi that would be full of energy that would sort of suddenly replenish all of the blood cells that I am losing? And there would be a simultaneous give and take. There would be the universal law of reciprocity. There would be, receiving, there would be that. Is that kind of where you're going?
Well, if you're in that vibration, of course, right? So we're capable of doing that for part of the puzzle, And the other part of being a self-healer, right, which, 50-year-old skydiver, I've spent a lot of my life healing myself, right? So the other thing is these little bitty action steps. Like you say, well, what am I eating? Can that affect this stuff? Let's not be all woo-woo, right? That's all airy-fairy where we only approach everything with a spiritual solution. Some spiritual solutions are physical actions like, did you know that if you cover yourself in coconut oil, all your skin and everything, that it creates a barrier? Like when they swim the English Channel, they cover themselves with fats. That was channeled information that was given to me. And I find it is amazing when these mountain flights that we do in Norway, it's cold out. It's early in the morning so that there's no wind. It is crazy cold out. But we take steps to address our fear of the cold by covering ourselves with coconut oil top to bottom in the morning, and we wear surgical gloves underneath our regular gloves, which creates a vapor barrier layer where we are engineered for success. Be brave when you're jumping out of an airplane, yeah, but wear a parachute.
I love that. I'm going to quote that for a while from you, Brian. Anisha is asking an interesting question that I hear a lot, and it's about fears of success. What she said is it's like she's afraid of being seen and therefore afraid of success, and she wants to be out there, but something holds her back. What is your advice in that situation when people are really afraid of being seen and afraid of success?
Yeah, that's a big one, isn't it? Where is that fear coming from? Right? Always asking, where is that fear coming from? Is it from me? Am I actually afraid to succeed, to kick butt, to be amazing, to be helpful, right? To raise vibration in whatever it is that I'm doing? Or is it just, again, this program of muting, of fear-based sort of normalcy and smallness?
Right? So that feels safer. You've got that tight little suit on again, of safety, and then you're afraid of taking it off and feeling expansive. My take on that is to do it anyway. Be brave and understand there's really no such thing as death of the. That's kind of how I transcended the genetic problem. I'm going on 2 winters without needing a blood transfusion for the first time. This is the second winter that I've gone through without needing one. And I know that I won't, but I think it's when it comes to success, you just start to say, okay, well, all right, what is that? Am I afraid of the responsibility, the transformation, the changes, the lifestyle? What does my life really look like? What does that mean for me is the ultimate question in my resistance process. What does that mean to me, success? And what does my life look like? And if what your life look like starts to scare you, you can start sort of proactively redesigning what you think your life will look like and really preparing for it in your head. Your ego is a place to play. It doesn't have to be a place to hold you back. When I get afraid of the future, I just say, all right, that's going to happen. I've gone to some really dark places with my ego, and, it's okay. I'm in a bit abandoned. Someone's going to break up with me. All right. Well, what then? I'm alone. Okay. That doesn't feel too bad because I have such beautiful friendships and I can create more of them. What if I'll lose all my friends? What if I'm not able to help the world and follow my path? I've gone to so many places of that and fears of success and fears of failure as well. But when it comes to success, it's this weird thing of what are the responsibilities? How does that transform my life? Oh my goodness, what if I fail those responsibilities and everyone that expects me? So it's like expectations and assumptions of what it's going to be like. And it doesn't have to be that. Success doesn't have to mean your life is super busy and you are having to do certain things that you don't have time to do. So you can change your vision of what you think success is that makes you afraid. In other words, play with your ego.
I love that. You tapped into something that was in my thoughts as well, is that one of our fears, in my experience, of the expansion of self, right, into a larger version of you, is the responsibility. It's like, I like my little life. I got time off. I don't have to, do very much. And, what if all these other people were now relying on me because I have this higher position of helpfulness where now I got all this, I got more work to do. I just wanted to chill out. Like, well, did you really just want to come here to do nothing?
Mm-hmm.
You know, did you want to just surrender to the enjoyable yes? The big yes. And if you're still feeling this agitation inside you as you ponder this possibility, maybe underneath that pyramid, you have things that you need to do to improve your skill and your knowledge and your I call it your gear factor, whatever. All the things need to come together to support the top of this pyramid of your dream of the larger you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. Patricia's asking, does fear exist once we leave our physical bodies after death, or is
I'm
it
leaving that to
directly
you.
related to this count? You're going to leave that one to me.
I'm going to leave that one to you.
It depends upon what dimension you choose to attend. Some of you choose to go straight into the spirit world, which is what I call the fourth dimension. And the fourth dimension, which is where I currently reside, even in physical form, is a place of all possibilities. And fear is one of those possibilities, which is why some of you believe that you can be psychically attacked. Someone's asking a question about that.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll go on to that question about how to best get over fear of psychic attack. My answer to you is, if you have something that you feel that you need to protect, people say all the time for psychic attack, do protection and do cleansing. If you feel that you need to protect yourself, there's still something to fear. What if attack were not possible? What if duality were not possible and everything that's trying to attack you is you? That's my question to you. It's rhetorical. And this young man who asked me the question is smart enough to know exactly what I mean.
Nice.
You want to take another question?
Yeah.
Okay, we went through that one. I have a large amount of fear of opening my third eye because I'm afraid of seeing thought forms that may not be of the highest intention. Oh, this is going to be good. I feel like it would affect my sense of security. How do you remain calm in seeing entities? Well, what would you do, Brian, if you saw an entity when you were doing a third eye meditation? How would you handle that?
Thank you for sharing. I'm of the light. I serve God the Creator. I have this sort of affirmation that I reawaken in this moment. It's like I'm with Him kind of thing, pointing at the light. Just so you know, I don't live there. It's okay. You can do what you're doing. In my cosmology, there's almost like the globe is lit on one side, and there's two halves of the globe, right? There is a darkness side that is real for those who are of that vibration, the absence of light, the absence of love. And I can love them too.
Yes.
And that's empowering as well. And that releases power over me, is in my experience, because I get flybys, of course. That's the way I view it when I'm in meditation and when I'm reaching out in forms of trance. Sure, I get flybys of all things. And sometimes you just say, thank you for sharing. God bless you, God bless you, God bless you on your journey.
I love that. I tend to get a little giggle out of entities that are attempting to scare me. And I start to thank them. And I just say, oh, thank you. Thank you so much. I bless you. Thank you for playing this role. And I'm sure it is very difficult in all of that catalyzing role that you are playing to serve me, to bring out my fears. So do you want me to act scared right now? Because I can. I mean, I don't really feel scared of you because I feel I am God and you are God. I honor God within you is another thing I say. Remember that, guys. I honor God within you as I honor God within me. So another way of saying that is I seek God in you and I seek God in me, and chant hum me hum. And it's just hum me hum. God is in you, God is in me. We are one. With that, it takes away all fear. It's an ancient Gurmukhi Sanskrit chant that pulls about that power of understanding oneness. And within oneness, there can be no psychic attacks or anything. So I also just kind of start to play around a bit. I'm just like, oh, you're here for a reason. You want to play? Like, but if you have fear, I don't urge you to play around in the way that I do with entities. But there's just so many ways you can handle this. But chanting, calling back your power if you're super afraid, honor that you're afraid, and you can use an I am invocation and say, I invoke the I am in me to call back my power from all four directions, north, south, east, and west. I call back my power through the space of all time infinitum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a big empowering realization. Dwayne Hartman is so good in his teaching about that one, isn't he? That we all have within us a fractal of source.
Yeah, absolutely.
And not everybody realizes that, and they feel disempowered because they think they're just little me.
Easy for him coming from so much, Egyptian Horus lineage and everything. But yeah, it's a great invocation. That one I was taught to me by my shamanic ancestors around age 8 when I was initiated. What is the name of my disorder? The disorder that serves me but does not own me currently is cold agglutinin disease. It still seems to serve me for some reason, but it certainly doesn't own. It just likes to play every now and then. Next question from Carolina. She's afraid of spiders. She said a few days ago she had a dream of a gigantic black venomous spider on her living room curtain. And it's not the first time that she's had these types of dreams with spiders or snakes for that matter. And she's asking, what do the dreams signify? And, because they leave her with very uneasy. What do you think about dreams of things that you really, really fear?
Oh, I think it's a great opportunity. I love that. To me, fear is this, right? It's a squeezing that makes us want the opposite of itself, which is expansion. And so every fear that we're experiencing is a wonderful doorway. It's an opportunity for expansion. If we view it that way, with thankfulness for this beautiful spider that is playing a role in my mind, whether I could touch it or not, whether it's real or not, is kind of irrelevant. That it's my relationship to my own fear that I need to be addressing, not the actual thing so much. And then that thing will reflect my shift. Right? I have a snake that I occasionally have to take out of the cage. He's 6 feet long. My wife had him before I met him. He was a teeny thing. And occasionally I have to clean the cage. And I got to reach into there. I remember you did the same thing with you at a tarantula, right? That was so brave. That was awesome. I love what you did. As you shift the way you feel, suddenly the object of fear shifts with you.
Yeah.
And that's important. It doesn't mean you can do anything, because in physical form, until you're really ascended the way I understand it, you can't do everything, right? I can't jump out of an airplane without a parachute, and I can't just rush at an angry dog, right? I can't just pick up a gigantic spider without some sort of shift in myself. But at the same time, I am tremendously powerful to change the way things are going. And so use that as an opportunity. Use it as an opportunity to change your relationship. And in the dream space, I'll share with you a short thing. I'll try not to make this long, but I had an ongoing dream, still do, my entire life, of being underground in these secret passages, these secret caves that nobody else knew about. And when I'd go down in there, every once in a while, I'd catch a glimpse of these little, they look like grays, little aliens that are running around inside there. And as a kid, it was sort of like interesting wonder, but not too much fear, but a little bit of fear, right? And I'd go down there in this adventure land, it was fascinating. And one day, it wasn't that long ago, just a few years ago, I had a dream where I got to the bottom of the cave. And at the bottom of the cave, I sat at a table with the aliens eating ice cream. Big ice cream sundaes. Coming back together, facing my fear and finding a place where I've transformed it. So I would invite you to consider that this spider in your dream could be turned into a friend.
Yeah, I kind of get the impression because I'm reading into her dream. I'm nosy like that. So in your dream, I'm seeing this spider, and the curtain is not closed. The curtain is kind of like pulled back with the what do they call them? The ties or whatever. And the spider isn't like sitting there like, oh my God, I'm gonna get you. The spider's just sitting on the curtain. Like
Hmm.
you're the one that's like being aware of the spider.
Yeah.
So I'm not getting an ominous thing. It's sort of like the spider is inviting you to say, okay, there's a spider on my curtain. Perhaps I can do the thing, recognize that I'm still afraid, but gently sweep it up into the dustpan or whatever. It's not a small spider, by the way. The spider that I'm seeing her talking about is like this, and it's black and venomous. It's big, but it's not being aggressive. It's just there randomly, and she notices it, and then it's not freaking out unless she does. If she freaks out, it's going to freak out. So you're right. It's an opportunity. I think that is an opportunity for us to do with some spiders. Metaphorically speaking, in the spiritual context, represent the how do we say this? It's an artistic, creative ability to weave. So when I think
Mm.
about spiders from the shamanic standpoint, they're actually neutral, and they are non-sentient beings, and they
Right.
are weaving webs, beautiful, intricate webs. That's creativity. And within those webs, you can invite it as a place to get stuck, or the spider knowingly will weave the web as a place of beautiful creativity to show the world how intricate she can be, and complex and mysterious and artistic. So I think that that's a part of you trying to bring out your creativity. Sometimes for those of you who have, say, corporate jobs, and you're in education, or you're kind of stuck in systems, you'll have spider dreams because they're telling you, hey, maybe this web that you're weaving around yourself is not exactly as creative within your divinity as you would wish to express, you
Yeah.
know? So
Don't,
spiders,
don't, yeah, don't be scared of the messenger.
yeah.
That's all he is. It's a messenger.
Yeah, let's see. We have a few more minutes. Hold on, let
Yeah.
me grab
Well,
a
as you're looking at that, suddenly my mom is talking really loud to you in my mind right now. And she's like, tell him about the story about your little brother. I said, okay. So my little brother had this fear dream that kept happening. It was a wolf, actually. And she said, next time you go to sleep, you're in that dream, I'm going to give you something special. This is called Shrinko. And you drop some of this Shrinko on him, and it'll make him small. You don't have to be scared of him anymore. And it worked repeatedly. He would wake up in his dream, have a lucid moment, put some Shrinko on the scary thing, and make it small. So thanks, Mom.
really, really cute. Reminds me of some of the things I used to do, when my boys were afraid. I used to hand them little spray bottles, and I'm like, this is the monster spray bottle, this is the monster flashlight, and to all that kind of stuff is fun, but play around. I had
Yep.
a dream of a big spider too. And when I say big spider, my guys kind of don't play when it comes to dreams. I'm a lucid dreamer, I'm an astral traveler. So I don't really have dreams. I have experiences that
Mhm.
are very real. So I go into other realms that are created, and my guide brought me into one of these realms that he calls the void. So the void, I'm trying to kind of minimalize it a little bit for due to lack of time, but it's a super scary place if you think about it, because you have nothing to face but yourself. So what
Yes.
came up for me in the void was a spider, and I was afraid of the spider. And it wasn't just a little spider on a curtain. I mean, it was a spider that was unfortunately about the size of a house or a skyscraper even, and it was moving around. For those of you who saw that horror movie, The Mist, it was like that kind of spider, that the military had to come and extinguish. And every time it would move, its feet would go boom, and shake the ground. And then I'd move around everywhere. And my guides were like, so how are you going to get rid of the spider? So I tried different frequencies. I got angry, and I let myself get big. And I showed my truest higher self form, within the Kalima. And I tried to axe its feet, and it was fine. And then it came right back. And it came back bigger. Anger did not kill the spider. So I tried different things. I tried everything. I even tried love. I'm like, I love this spider. And my guide's like, no, you don't. Don't even try it. That's not real. So that didn't work. Love doesn't always work for fear if you don't really feel it. And if it's not in your authentic place in that moment, it's kind of a hard hat to place. So the only thing that would work was my guide saying, look, this is a non-sentient being. Be the spider. Be neutral, be non-sentient. What does it feel like to be in this spider's body? What does it feel like to be looking down at little you? And I tried that, and I saw me, and I wasn't little. The spider saw something bigger and more scary than what I felt that I was. And in that moment, the spider and I were one. So if you have something that you're really afraid of, my advice to you is to take it into meditation and become one with it, and ask how that being would feel and how that being would view you.
Nice.
So it was an interesting way of putting it. Oh, we have just a few more minutes. Do you want to take another question?
Sure, sure.
Jennifer says, I know from experience there are many ways to gain fear, from past life memories that have surfaced, cellular memories when I was in the womb and a baby, which my mom confirmed. I learned fears from a parent, for example, or from other people, fears from trauma that I experienced in my life. My question here is, what are all the ways to get past these fears and heal from them? Or is there just one way we can transcend our fears, possibly all at once? Wow. Yeah, you go ahead.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's funny. I wrote a whole book on that topic specifically, and I got to the end of it. I was like, well, geez, this book needs to be longer. And then I realized, gosh, I don't think there aren't enough pages in the world to, I mean, I would have to deforest the planet to fully cover the topic. And yet, if you understand the core principles, and many of them we've already discussed here today, that bringing in your power in one form or another, the feeling that you are creating your own safety, that you are guided, right? And that you are in a reality where you have enough of a lever or lever, depending on where you live, that you can affect the outcome enough that it is acceptable to you, and you can learn from this experience. So, yeah, right. Where do you go from there? Well, you listen to your own intuition, right? I mean, if you have to read more books and find more teachers and get more information outside of yourself, you're always going to feel a little bit hungry for more to feel safe enough. It has to be grounded in your own presence to stand your own ground against your fear or with your fear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if you go into those levels of your higher self from those lifetimes, and you feel that there's always some root that's buried somewhere deep within those core beliefs, whether they be from the past in this lifetime or from the past in other lifetimes, you are planting more roots into the non-reality of the past, at least from my perspective. The past in my teachings is not as relevant because from what I've noticed about watching humans in the whole reincarnation cycle is that they get a reset. They automatically get a reset every single time they come into a body, is what I've observed, as they're sitting there in the spirit world and deciding when to be reborn, if to be reborn. Yes, there is an if. You're not forced. You get a reset from all of that. However, what I also notice is that many of you are choosing to carry over those lessons from those lifetimes because they are that powerful, and the methodology of expansion is so great that you are trusting that you are an omnipresent being, understanding your power in the presence. You know when you're not in a body that you can do it, which is why you choose to have those memories of those lifetimes or come about that or formulate an awareness of those lifetimes at some point, because you choose your wake-up points and you choose exactly when you're going to remember or if you're going to remember. All of that is predestined. It is in your divine script. And the only thing that you're doing is responding to it and choosing your response and choosing how you're going to create. Because you have already, you guys know what I'm going to do. I always like to pull out something, talk about the spiral. You guys know that you've come from here to here to here. You guys know that already. So the only thing you're doing in past lifetimes is connecting all of these little points. You see what I mean? That's all you're doing is formulating a connection. You're not going this way downward and then this way upward and then this way downward, pain to expand again. Look at it this way. When you look down, all this is happening simultaneously. Do you understand what I mean? How the past is not as incredibly relevant. You've already done it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we're learning, aren't we? We're learning from all of these things and reprocessing and hopefully releasing these traumas, or, we're going to be destined to be reliving them, aren't we? Our fear of I died this way and now I'm going to be, especially in times of my life where I'm feeling contracted and fearful, I'm going to draw in thoughts and even the sublimation of memories of these other experiences that I had, and then create more of it until I finally release the burden of it, to look at it directly in the eyes. This is what I felt. This is what it was. That's what happened. And I'm still here. That my fear did not kill me, really.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we close, can you tell us a little bit more about where our viewers can find you and what you're going to be doing? What are you doing for the rest of the year and next year?
Oh, well, I'm going to continue expanding this. Helping people deal with fear is my purpose. And I'm learning how to do it every year. I say I'm better than I was last year, and next year I'm going to be a lot better at it. So I'm continuing to write another book right now. It's my 5th book actually right now, and continue to make videos. So if you guys find my YouTube channel, which is under my name, Brian Germain, I've got up to 231 videos or something now. Some of them are skydiving related and some of them are not. Some of them are about fear. So I have a playlist on there called Let's Talk About Fear, and a show called Casual Chat where I'm interviewing like this a variety of really, really wise and interesting people. And I continue to see clients through, in most cases, through Zoom. I do my sessions just like you do, and try to help. In most cases, I'm helping already amazing people become more amazing. That's mostly what I do, which is really fun. And I haven't met anybody yet that isn't amazing. I don't think it exists.
That's what I love about you. Yeah. All right, guys.
This was great. Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. And is it briangermain.com?
You can go to briangermain.com, which is, it'll lead you to transcendingfear.com. I also have Adventure Wisdom. Adventure Wisdom has some videos that are longer that are around the topic of fear as well that are available.
And how can we find your books?
Oh, you can just get them on the website. That's the easiest place to get them. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. But yeah, thank you all. Thank you everybody that showed up, and we had a nice group that showed up for this, and I just love that people are brave enough to take a closer look at the topic of fear.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Absolutely, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Pamela. You're awesome.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Somebody save me. Somebody help me. Somebody take me down from here. I wanna go home. I wanna go home. Somebody save me. Please, won't somebody help me? Somebody whisper in my ear, I'm taking you home. I'm taking you home. So welcome home.